Come, we're running, boys, don't you hear that noise? Like the thunder in the sky, how it rolls along in the good old song from the sons of Nebraska. And the peace with our neighbor, the promise of living, the promise of growing.
Thank you for being here. I'm really excited about this year. As you could see, we had some scenes from our N150 last spring, and we had the great privilege of being asked to take part in that celebration. And as we're an integral part of this community and this culture in the university, we were able to shine. And I want to thank the Chancellor for asking us to be a part of that. These last 2 years have been interesting to me, and I knew there was a great tradition set down over 100 years ago. I've had the privilege of seeing many of our students, many of whom you're going to see this afternoon, many of our faculty, and I'm constantly wowed by them. I had the chance of traveling to South Korea this last summer, to China last year, to see our faculty and our students in action. And what a great set of ambassadors that we have for this institution, not only here, but across the United States and globally. And it is such a great honor and a privilege it is to work here and you're seeing a snapshot at what we do, but I get to experience this every day, and I'm humbled and privileged and honored to be a part of this tradition that was set down by the great visionaries 125 years ago, and I'm just so honored to represent you. At the same time, it's a great responsibility that we have, right? I'm not sure if those people 125 years ago knew what they were doing, but wow, it's a great responsibility, and I take that very seriously, and I even consider it sacred. And how important it is that we continue that tradition and help us to be an integral part of this community. And I just want to give a great round of applause to our students and our faculty and our staff, because without them, without you, wow, we wouldn't be able to be a part of this. So thank you. I really... So welcome to our GKSOM 125 year. This is the kickoff to an amazing year as we celebrate throughout the entire year. And you're gonna see some great performances that I'm lucky enough to be able to hear every day in the halls and as I walk through. So enjoy the show.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm here to give you a very quick ramble through the history of the university, which was founded in 1869 and, in fact, added vocal and instrumental music study quite soon thereafter. It was not until 1892 that Chancellor Canfield began to plan for an enhancement of the music program by proposing a conservatory of music that would operate not as a department of the university, but as an independent private institution generating its own funds, but serving the university by offering instruction for which the university would grant credit. Willard Kimball, director of the Conservatory at Grinnell College in Iowa, was invited to relocate and put into motion these plans. That's a very young Willard Kimball, and then about the time he arrived here. Arriving in Lincoln, Kimball's stated objective was that his new conservatory would offer the best instruction available between Chicago and San Francisco. As the owner and proprietor of the school, he immediately erected a building. He must have brought substantial capital into the project because he was able to raise over $1 million in today's money in cash and loans to construct it, and he was prepared immediately to assume a large annual payroll equivalent to over $200,000 today. The site he purchased was at 11th and R Streets. Slightly unprepossessing, but it got kind of cleaned up. This is directly across the street to the south of the university proper. Construction began in time for completion and opening of the school in the fall of 1894. That's not the School of Music, that's the university in front of you. And we're standing right in front of the School of Music, it's behind us. Kimball's original building had 3 floors, 2 above ground plus a lower level. Looks like Westbrook, right? 2 up, 1 down. It included classrooms, practice rooms, offices, a dining hall, and dormitory space. His most optimistic plans called for expanding it to 5 floors and adding a major eastern extension. However, in the end, he was only able to add a 4th floor just over a decade later. That's actually the 3 + 1 makes 4 version, and this was his dream, which actually never got built. By the standards of the 1890s, the new conservatory was a magnificent structure with steam, heat, and electricity. It was described as being a model of beauty and completeness, but it had no performance spaces. The growth of the school was extraordinary. In the decade leading up to the First World War, Kimball's music school became one of the 6 largest in the country, enjoying a national reputation and attracting over 700 students a year from as many as 19 states. That's twice as big as we are now. Given that the university itself, right across the street, had only a few thousand students at the time and a small cluster of buildings, we need to recognize the significant scope of Kimball's enterprise in the life of the university and Lincoln community before World War I. Not to be lost sight of is that Kimball, as a private entrepreneur, actively risked his capital, his own money, to underwrite contractual guarantees for commercial performances in Lincoln, and his school came to be a significant arts presenter. As nationally and internationally prominent artists and ensembles traveled by railroad between, say, Chicago and Denver, or between Omaha and Kansas City, Mr. Kimball could entice many to make a stop and give a concert in Lincoln. He was also instrumental in bringing an important concert organ to campus that was installed in Grant Memorial Hall. At the end of the 1916-17 school year, nearing his mid-60s, Mr. Kimball chose to retire. He cashed out and sold his institution to a major private company, Standard Chautauqua. Over the years, the University School of Music had made Mr. Kimball a wealthy man. He built a large frame house, which still stands, on one of the most prestigious streets in what is now Lincoln's Near South Historical District. And he was an active member of the Lincoln Country Club and other elite civic and church organizations. When he retired in 1917, the sale of his school netted him a substantial profit, the equivalent of several $1 million in today's money, and he proceeded to pursue various business interests over the course of a long retirement before dying in Lincoln in 1939. The change of ownership brought a different focus to the school as Standard Chautauqua chose to use their income to support a different kind of enterprise rather than continue as major arts presenters in Lincoln. The intent of the new owners was to maintain the school's student programs and to add to them the preparation of artists for Winter Lyceum and Summer Chautauqua touring, and of course, get a bit of the artist fees. A director hired by the new owners, Adrian Nevins, an educator and Chautauqua performer himself, came up from Kansas City to take charge in 1917 and effect the necessary changes. Standard Chautauqua soon sold the School of Music directly to Nevins and a small group of investors. Now, one unique feature of the Nevins years was the preparation of Native American performers for Chautauqua. And in fact, several of the most talented of these individuals became members of the school's faculty in the 1920s. When traveling Chautauqua, that whole phenomenon began to fold up in the middle to later 1920s. Stand-alone institutions dependent on it, like our School of Music, began to founder financially and then moved to a different organizational model by merging into their local public universities. This merger of public and private entities is exactly how, for instance, the Schools of Music at Wichita State and UMKC both got their start both in the year 1926. In Lincoln, with the future of the University School of Music in doubt as a viable private enterprise, Mr. Nevins sold it to the university in 1930 and stayed on for a year to run the school as it was being folded into a School of Fine Arts. Mr. Nevins was then himself headhunted away by Ithaca College in upstate New York in 1931 to become dean of its conservatory and manage the same kind of consolidation and reorganization necessary there. The university finally bought the School of Music's land and buildings and hired its teachers as faculty members. These were Depression years during which faculty salaries were repeatedly slashed and the University School of Fine Arts was closed. But the School of Music was permitted to continue in the hope that it could produce revenue. A further plan of shrinking and reorganization in 1937 turned the school back into a department that's bigger to smaller, and Arthur Westbrook, a professional music administrator and performer, was brought in from outside the university in 1938 to be its chair. Westbrook proceeded to establish a comprehensive instructional program that became the basis for the degree programs still offered today. And I'm sure you recognize the name. The Master of Music degree was inaugurated in 1941, and the Department of Music Education was established as part of Teachers College in 1942. Westbrook retired in 1952 after 14 full years in office. Now, the 50s and early 60s were a relatively quiet time for the school, as well as a period of, I'm afraid, slow decline. The Department of Music was still housed in Mr. Kimball's old building, and much of the original furniture and musical equipment was still in use. Magnificent as it had been in 1894, it had deteriorated and become obsolete in terms of the needs of the school, even after an annex for a large ensemble rehearsal was finally built on the East End in 1957, and the organ in Grant Memorial was demolished. This is that beautiful organ. Now they're just taking it apart. On the floor are the organ pipes. And these gentlemen are holding a plaque that actually honored the installation of the organ in 1902 as the alumni organ, and it's about the only thing left, as you can see. In the early 1960s, under the leadership of a new department chair, Emanuel Wishnow, a campaign began to reinvigorate music at UNL. It focused on the construction of two new buildings, Westbrook and Kimball. State funding for a new building became available in 1963, and construction began in 65 just west of the old school here. The move from the old building to the new occurred between fall and spring semesters of 1966-1967. And in April 1967, the vacant old conservatory building was razed, and a recital hall was constructed directly on the original site, which Willard Kimball had purchased in 1894. That's right where we are today. Just two items from the old building survive. This plaque in the office right outside Dr. Ruiz's private office. And the plaque above the door here, which was removed and put into room 119. So it's still there. Kimball Recital Hall was completed in '69, and the university for the first time had a major concert facility on campus, for the very first time. For the next 20 years, the Department of Music was able again to play a significant role as a commercial music presenter in the city. Without capital of its own to cover minimums and guarantees, because the university didn't want to risk money, it worked with local organizations and private donors to mount concerts of local groups, such as the Lincoln Symphony, and bring nationally prominent talent to the city. Kimball Hall. After consolidating these gains over the course of the 1970s, a significant refreshment of programs and facilities under the leadership of Director Raymond Haig was undertaken at the end of the decade, and Dr. A. Haig earned the School of Music a designation as a University Area of Excellence. This led to the opening of the Music Library on the lower level of Westbrook in 1980, and the inauguration of a doctoral program in performance and composition with the enrollment of the first DMA candidates in 1983. After a national search, Dr. Cary Grant assumed responsibility for the school, serving from '85 until '91. And it was during his time in office, in 1989, that the Leeds Center for Performing Arts opened its doors in Lincoln, and the School of Music passed over its role as the principal sponsor and arts provider in the Lincoln community to this new facility and its staff. This doesn't actually show you the Leeds Center. It's around the corner, but it's the best I could do. Cary Grant was followed as director by Lawrence Millett, under whom the School of Music celebrated its first 100 years in 1994 with a gala televised centennial anniversary concert featuring students and faculty. In the late 80s and 90s, the university experienced many changes under new chancellors who were brought in from outside the state as strangers and charged by the regents to raise the university's national profile as a Research One university. This puts pressure on us too, and as a consequence, first under Dr. Grant and then under Dr. Millett, the School of Music saw many additional changes over and above those caused by the Leeds Center. Above all, there was the rapid retirement of over 1/3 of the tenured music faculty, and a rebuilding of the music faculty and student body under even higher standards of achievement in creativity and scholarship. The year '93 brought two other major changes to the School of Music. It became part of a new College of Fine and Performing Arts, and the undergraduate teacher education program in music was finally brought over from Teachers College. Not really that long ago. When Dr. Millett left UNL, a national search brought Dr. John Richmond from the University of South Florida in 2003 to be director, a position he held for 13 years. Under Richmond's leadership, strategic initiatives in chamber music, jazz studies, and American opera and musical theater raised the school's national reputation. A new PhD in music was added that now has emphases in music education, piano pedagogy, and voice pedagogy, and the dance program, which had begun its move into the school in 1998, finally achieved professional accreditation. Dr. Richmond was an articulate advocate for private donations to public universities to support programs, faculty, and students. In all, during his term in office, the school's endowment quadrupled to over $21 million. And of course, alongside other highly significant legacies and permanent endowments, the single biggest gift of this era was an endowed naming gift from UNL alumnus Glenn Korff, who created the Glenn Korff School of Music in 2013. After Dr. Richmond's departure to become Dean of the College of Music at the University of North Texas, Dr. Sergio Ruiz, now in his third year at the school, joined us as director in 2017. Here's hoping for many more years of growth and achievement. Happy anniversary. I'd now like to say a very brief word about the next piece. It's going to be performed by Matthew Carter and Trey Meyer and accompanied by Dr. Graham House. The two vocal soloists are our Glenn Korff undergraduate and Glenn Korff graduate artist scholar.
like fading colors deep,
to the subaqueous stillness of the sea,
and flows forever in a moon green,
held in the arms of rhythm
and of
I am in need of music that would flow.
I am in need of music that would flow. That would
Good afternoon. My name is Chuck O'Connor. I'm the Dean of the Hickson Lee College of Fine and Performing Arts, and I want to start by thanking all of you, our esteemed students and faculty and staff of the Glenn Korff School, for allowing me to say a few words, to extend on behalf of the college our congratulations for 125 years of music, and also to offer a few words of what this school means to me personally. You know, we live in a noisy world. I think we all know that. But before there was Spotify and YouTube and playlists, and before there were CDs and smartphones and vinyl and FM radio and AM radio and a plethora of other channels, before all of that, before all the 20th century brought forth all these different modes of recording and broadcasting and dissemination, the world wasn't so noisy as it is today. In fact, it was a rather silent world, a rather quiet world. And I think about that when I think about Nebraska and about the folks, some of the pictures you saw, the folks who founded this university in this state 150 years ago. I think about them. I think about those folks that came here from Germany and Sweden and the Czech and Slavic and Nordic countries, many of them your ancestors, your grandparents or great-grandparents, people that came from all over Europe, and I must say from Mexico and Asia, as well as the eastern and southern parts of our United States. And their world wasn't full of noise. The sounds that they heard were the sounds of work and wind and weather. But when the work was done, and the hour of brotherhood and celebration arrived, they brought out their music. Whether it was oompa bands or violin or accordions or guitars. And when they were able to, some of them were able to buy pianos for their homes or organs for their houses of worship. And when they were able to, they built opera houses and music halls all across the state, some of which we've performed in Red Cloud and Friend and beyond. And when they were able to, they created a university. And as one of the first parts of that university, they established a school of music as part of the 1869 charter for this university. And I don't know if many of you participated in the N150 experiences back in February. I had a chance to actually look at the charter of the university. You know, they wrote in longhand and in cursive. And one of the first things they did was establish music and the arts as something that was to be taught here. And I think that's amazing. I don't remember what the other things that they wanted to do were, but I know it was music and the arts. And music is still a part of this university, whether it's on football Saturdays or in the hundreds of concerts that this school does, or dance concerts as well that we present annually. Because without music, there would not be music in our state as we know it. And without this school of music, there would not be music in this state as we know it. Our faculty perform in the orchestras and ensembles and individually all across the state, and our students and graduates go on to become the teachers, both in our high schools and offering individual instruction. And even if you never attended the University of Nebraska or the Glenn Korff School of Music, if you live in Nebraska and you listen to music, you are touched by the people who graduated from this school. Now, many people ask, what good is music? What good is studying the arts? Why do we even offer it in our schools and in our colleges? I mean, it doesn't cure cancer, and we don't win wars, and we all know that we don't always make a lot of money doing it either. And I understand that. Because the answer to me is that life is about more than work. And at the end of the day, it's music and the arts that make all these other things that we do and all these other struggles and work that we do, it makes life worthwhile. And our founders understood that when they established music as part of our university. And that's what makes our university and our state and this school very, very special. This school and what you do is a gift. The act of being a musician is an act of generosity. And though we might not cure cancer or AIDS, I think we save lives just the same. I know that music saves my life every day, and every time I walk into this hall and hear this beautiful music, it's very, very special to me. So on behalf of the whole college, I want to congratulate all of you. I want to congratulate the school for 125 years of music. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you again for being here. Please join us for some food out in this little, in the center right outside the building. Before you go, I'd like to thank two people. I'd like to thank first of all the students that participated, all of the faculty, all the staff to help put this together, and we need to give them a round of applause. Two people that really made this happen was Dr. Jamie Reimer, who helped put the program together, and Brian Reeves. I just want to thank them as well. So all freshmen / first year undergraduate students, please come up to the stage because we want to take a picture of you. We want history for another 125 years. Everybody else go out and get some food. Thank you again. Have a great day.
Come on up, first years over here. We'll take it quick so we can get food.